To the one in the back with the glasses.
Okay. I just want to relax regulations and just have another great progression, because that's what basically happened in the 20s, like the Roaring 20s, because you had big business owners like Rockefeller and Carnegie who basically ruined our economy because there was just no regulations to make sure that our stock market didn't crash. And it's the same thing that happened with our Great Recession that just happened like 5 years ago, because Bush allowed regulations to just completely collapse, and that's what happened. Like you had big businesses like banks that just had to be bailed out, and they never did bail out.
Could I have?
One thing I was going to say about the merging of the economies. One thing that regulation did do though, for companies like Comcast and Time Warner, is that Time Warner and Comcast wanted to have a merger where they merged the two companies. If they did merge, it would be such a large cable network and internet provider that basically nobody in most of the United States would have a choice of what provider of internet they would choose. With this, there would be horrible service from that company because they weren't competing with anybody. They had everybody using that service. And what this also would be allowed to do is net neutrality is a kind of something that's controversial with companies want to regulate the internet. And if we allow something with no government regulation to happen, we could have services like that where you can only be allowed on certain websites or other certain or
Yes. Yeah.
So about your argument, a few things. You said morality, you talked about government, how everything is violence-based. And you got to think about what is government? Government is a bunch of people coming together saying, okay, we can't just have anyone being a mass murderer going around killing someone, or we can't have one person abusing another person. We have to step in at one point. And yes, it has to be partially violence-based, if you say that. It's not violence-based unless someone's doing something wrong, something inherently wrong that the people through representation decided was wrong, right? People through representation decide what they want. That's how things work in our existing democracy, right? Like we can't go around murdering people because of that, because we elected representatives who say that for us, and they make that a law and they enforce it with violence. So it's the same thing with business regulation. The only thing businesses care about is making profit. They don't give two shits about the consumer. They only care about making profit. We've learned that for the past 200 years, right? So if we let that keep happening, things won't turn out well. I mean, if you look other places on the planet, they don't have basic minimum wage. There will be laborers that are paid such a small amount that it's practically slavery. So we need business regulation, and that counts, because a lot of private companies sell out these laborers for very small prices. And without business regulation, everything will just become a crapshoot. I mean, just look at India and China. Sure, they're expanding economies, but the people there are not happy at all.
As a reminder, please no profanity.
I also just want to make a point that in the 1920s, where much of capitalism wasn't regulated, though economy did expand, it expanded more in the 40s when FDR stepped in and LBJ and did do basic regulations like outlawing child labor and such. So.
To respond to what you said, first of all, I think you misunderstood. I'm sorry. I think you misunderstood what slavery is. The problem with slavery is not that slaves are paid too low of wages; it's that they're forced to work. I think you misunderstood it. Nobody in China has a gun to their head forcing them to work. I'm not saying that the conditions are justified, but I'm just saying you misunderstood that. You completely misunderstood it by making the comparison to slavery. And
the definition is a wage.
Oh, hold on.
The definition is a wage slave. Wage slave is a term used by it's a buzzword that has a very negative connotation that's used. It's not actual slavery. And let me get back to what, can't just interrupt me when I'm talking. To what you said, the government, the government just does what people consent. Okay, an example of something that the representation decided was okay and to outlaw was black people being free. For slaves to run away, the representation decided, well, you know what, we elected these representatives, and the representatives decided that if a black man runs away from slavery, we're going to hunt him down, we're going to take him back, and black people in the South can't be free. Those are two examples of fantastic things that the representation decided. And in addition, you use the term democracy to describe the United States. It's absolutely not a democracy.
Wait, can you raise your hand, please? Yes.
First of all, you said that slavery is forcing someone to work, but the thing is, especially in those countries, if you don't work, you don't eat. So you are technically forced to work, because if you want to live, you have to work. So I want to present this question to you. Would you like to work in one of those countries for mere pay's day, or what?
Okay,
Wait.
you say yes or no. No, it's not a yes or no.
So, going on that, and thank you, that's kind of what I'm saying. Now, when we say slavery, two things are inherent to slavery, right? You're not getting paid anything, and you're being forced to do it, right? If you choose a country like Dubai, what they do, they go to countries like Bangladesh, and they take 10,000 people that don't have any money, and they need to send it, well, the money they're making, they want more money. So they're shipped over to Dubai, and they're made to build these giant projects, and then they become maids and nurses, not nurses, but housekeepers, and they're paid, some of them are paid nothing, right? Some of them are paid nothing because of debts, right? Now, these people are forced to be there. They're literally forced to be there. What's stopping them? They don't have the money to go away, and their owners are literally holding their passports. And why can't government step in? Because they're not regulating that industry. They have no power over that labor industry. In fact, the only small regulation in the labor industry in Dubai is international labor regulations. In fact, because the government doesn't enforce it, it's almost impossible for them to enforce it. So what's happening is these workers are working in 110-degree heat, right? When it's illegal to work past 100 degrees internationally, that's a law. You can't work when it's 104 degrees outside. These people are being forced to work in 110-degree temperatures. And on the note of making so little, the very basis of our country, which is a representative democracy, yes, it is. You go and you vote. You vote. Every single one of us has a tiny little say, right? Whether or not we're voting for our electors, representatives, senators, state assemblymen, our councilors, city councilors, mayors, we do have a say. Because, how do you know that? Because if 100% of people disagree on something, it's going to change. That's how you know. In countries like Vietnam, what used to be Vietnam, this wasn't the case. Everyone could disagree on something. That's how you can identify democracy. Now, when you look at that principle, that all these people have decided that we need a minimum wage. Why? Because the basis of our country is you can move up, right? If we didn't have a minimum wage, it's practically impossible for us to move up classes. And that defeats the very purpose of this country's founding.
So you guys can hear me. I'd like to touch on what you said about, the financial crisis. Just one clarification is that it was actually Bill Clinton who allowed Glass-Steagall to be repealed and causing the crisis. I just wanted to say that because, Bush is my homie. So, but one thing that's really important to understand is like the history of the United States without regulation. I think the company was called U.S. Oil, far back, which is owned by the Rockefellers, which had a monopoly on 90% of the U.S. oil production. And what they were doing is they were raising the prices so high that it was, bad for consumers and that couldn't, spend that money on other things. What makes capitalism work is extra income, money that you have that isn't spent on basic things. And when you have to spend extra money on basic things like oil to run your car or like light your lamps, then back in those days, then you don't have all this extra money to contribute to local small businesses. So what the government did is they split up U.S. oil into multiple companies. But now what's happened is that those companies are being bought up again by the same company that used to be U.S. oil, which is now called ExxonMobil. So government regulation, it's really not good most of the time, but there are points, like the resolution is, that, it says, is it ever? And, it is a lot of the time, and it's not a lot of the time. So I think working conditions are a perfect example, and environmental things, because if we are suffering as a society, then we don't have the capital to make capitalism work. Thank you.
Yeah. I don't really want to debate, but I just wanted to add a point of fact, because I just had to teach this. And Rockefeller's company was standing for it.
And you're absolutely correct, by 1890, he controlled 90% of the oil refinery and distribution. It wasn't oil, it was kerosene. He didn't have the internal combustion engine. So he was refining the oil into kerosene. But it was a real anomaly. Before Rockefeller's, it was called the trust, not a monopoly. Right? Before Rockefeller's trust, the price of kerosene was 23 cents. And when Rockefeller created the trust, the price went down to 7 cents. So it was, which they broke up the trust for good reasons. I'm not in favor of trust and monopolies, but they broke it up for good reasons. And that's not to excuse Rockefeller for being ruthless in his nefarious business practices. As far as the price is concerned, it went down when he created this trust.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, okay.
So all in favor of the closing of the stock talk, say aye.
Motion to adjourn.
Aye. Thank you.
He's a good, hey, listen, I know you wanted to.
Hold on, let me mute.
You wanted to, yeah, you
Let
wanted
me
to say
stop this
something,
for a minute.
some kind words, but.